On Africa 24 English, the African Union Journal is presented to you by Afreximbank.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us on this edition of the African Union Journal, your weekly rendezvous on news around the African Union. We will be looking at Africa's economic diversification through special economic zones. As the African continent seeks to industrialize and free itself from its dependence on raw materials, special economic zones are emerging as essential levers. With over 200 SEZs in Africa, only 38% of them are fully operational. Stakeholders across the continent aim to develop SEZs aligned with the objective of the African Continental Free Trade Area, capable of generating added value, creating jobs, and boosting regional competitiveness. More insight in this report.
Special economic zones (SEZs) are emerging as a key lever for the industrialization and diversification of the African continent, increasingly less dependent on raw materials. The continent's stakeholders are seeking to develop SEZs in line with the objective of the African Continental Free Trade Area, capable of adding value, creating jobs, and boosting regional competitiveness. If effectively implemented and adapted, SEZs can be the cornerstone of the stronger, more interconnected and industrially self-resilient Africa. Aligned with the African Continental Free Trade Area, they promise not only growth but transformation.
Special economic zones have been specifically spelled out as tools that will enhance the promotion of intra-Africa trade within the AFCFTA.
With intra-African trade accounting for only 15% of the continent's total trade, key stakeholders across Africa are keen to make special economic zones a catalyst for industrialization and regional integration. By harmonizing industrial and fiscal policies, the African Continental Free Trade Area (AFCFTA) hopes to build a vibrant, inclusive, and globally competitive continental market.
Special economic zones contribute quite significantly to manufacturing, as well as to manufacturing for a specific country, domestic market, but also regional and continental market. So this is a very important aspect of Africa's overall industrialization effort, and the connection between the AFCFTA and domestic markets production in terms of the special economic zones, in my view, is very clear. And so what the AFCFTA presents to governments and countries that have invested in special economic zones is an opportunity for those goods that are produced to have an additional market, which is the AFCFTA market.
With the broader vision of the AFCFTA, each SEZs needs to be tailored to local economic realities and national development priorities. Sometimes a specialized economic zone is set up or defined in a framework where traditions or villages and communities have not been involved or considered at all in this new economic dynamic. As a strategy for promoting industrialization, attracting foreign direct investment, and creating jobs, the continent is increasingly turning to special economic zones. Today, 47 African countries host more than 200 operational SEZs. Within the framework of the African Union's Agenda 2063, the AFCFTA Ministerial Regulation 1/2023 recognizes the role of SEZs in promoting industrialization and allows products manufactured in SEZs to be considered originating product within the meaning of the AFCFTA, provided they meet the criteria set out in Annex 2 of the Protocol on Trade in Goods.
The AFCFTA represents an unprecedented opportunity for African economic integration. It aims to create the world's largest single market, encompassing 1.3 billion people and a combined GDP of $3.4 trillion. At the heart of this momentum, special economic zones are emerging as an essential tool to realize the full potential of this historic agreement. Nana Kamsukom tell us more.
The establishment of the Continental Free Trade Area in 2021 marked the beginning of a phase of economic integration on the African continent. Special economic zones are crucial to realizing these potential. These incentive zones, which are subject to different legal and economic regulations from the rest of the country, aim to attract foreign investment, develop regional value chains, and stimulate the production of goods and services for the continental market, reducing dependence on imports. According to Hailemariam, SEZs are fundamental to achieving the objectives of the AFCFTA. The role of special economic zones is absolutely crucial. That's why we are here. According to the African Economic Zone Outlook, Africa is home to more than 200 special economic zones with more than 70 projects currently under development. To support these dynamics, our heads of state and the Assembly of Heads of State and Government of the African Union, on the advice and recommendation of the trade ministers, have adopted a ministerial regulation on the treatment of products from special economic zones. To maximize the benefits of the AFCFTA, the Secretary General is urging African states to strengthen their SEZs and align them with the objectives of the agreement. In his view, this will ensure that goods and services produced in these zones, in accordance with the rules of origin, will enjoy full access to the single African market, thereby promoting their competitiveness, cost-effective production, and Africa's industrial development. This regulation ensures that goods and services produced in special economic zones, originating in these zones and complying with the rules of origin, are fully integrated into the African single market. This will guarantee that special economic zones will be competitive, that they will be able to produce at a profitable cost, and that they will contribute to Africa's industrial development. According to Hailemariam, in the context of the introduction of tariffs by the United States, the harmonization of SEZs policies, the sharing of successful experiences, and enhanced regional coordination would maximize the positive effect of these zones in trade between African countries. According to data from the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, the number of special economic zones on the continent has risen from 20 in 1990 to 237 in 2020, an increase of 1,085%. They are concentrated mainly in Kenya, Nigeria, Ethiopia, and Egypt. We know that African countries will be negatively affected by the imposition of tariffs, especially those countries exporting to the United States under AGOA. We must therefore see this crisis as an opportunity for our continent to seize the moment, an opportunity to deepen and accelerate intra-African trade. This includes accelerating Africa's industrial integration as well as integrating Africa into its own industry, the African FTAE market into its own special economic zones of production. African free trade zones are playing a key role in the African Continental Free Trade Area, according to a report by the Oxford Business Group and the World Association of Investment Promotion Agencies. The AFCFTA, which comes into effect in January 2021, aims to create the world's largest common market with a population of 1.3 billion people and a combined GDP of $3.4 trillion.
Artificial intelligence, long debated in science fiction, literature, and film, is no longer seen as a vision of the future. It is now a ubiquitous reality in digital ecosystems and in education, health, finance, and justice sectors. It symbolizes an unprecedented revolution in the search for and the production of knowledge. A report by Joel Barlow.
Although Africa has made significant progress in terms of connectivity, disparities remain. According to International Telecommunication Union estimates for 2024, only 38% of Africa's population uses the internet, compared with a global average of 69%. Women are less connected than men, and 25% of people living in rural areas are unable to access the internet because of a lack of broadband coverage. Disparities also exist between urban and rural areas. The issue of Africa's digital sovereignty and artificial intelligence is at the heart of many strategic, political, and technological debates. The African Union adopted a number of policy frameworks in 2020. There was a strategy for the development of artificial intelligence, and the Commission was mandated to establish a 5-year plan, which includes 2 phases, one between 2025 and 2026, to establish structural governance of artificial intelligence on the continent and the mobilization of resources. Artificial intelligence is a rapidly expanding field that presents both opportunities and challenges for Africa. For AI to make a positive contribution to digital sovereignty, it is essential to develop appropriate ethical frameworks and policy strategies.
Pleased to join to our special guests. Welcome to Kigali. I hope you're enjoying your stay with us. Artificial intelligence is driving some of the most groundbreaking innovations of our time and accelerating the pace of digital transformation. Across industries, the benefits of artificial intelligence are very evident.
A study carried out by Oxford University researchers in 2015 revealed that almost 45% of content published in Encyclopedia is produced by contributors who live mainly in Europe or North America. Africa no longer wants to be a spectator of the great technological revolutions. It now intends to be an actor, leader, or beneficiary.
Fundamental questions about accountability, equality, safety, and security. AI enables cyber attacks, could cripple a country's critical infrastructure and paralyze essential services. Most critically, AI is eroding the fundamental principle of human control over the use of force. The integration of AI with nuclear weapons is particularly alarming, with potentially disastrous consequences. We must avoid it at all costs. The fate of humanity.
At a time when Africa is positioning itself in the face of global technological upheaval, digital sovereignty should not be a luxury but a strategic priority. It is crucial to develop local infrastructures, build human capacity, and put in place clear public policies on data protection. Africa must move from being an operating ground to a central player by investing in Afrocentric AI. To ensure its digital sovereignty, the continent must invest more in data protection, digital infrastructures, and master the related technological processes by reducing its dependence on foreign technologies.
On to our regional news, Mozambique and Malawi have joined forces to promote the implementation of a broader passport system. Southern African Development Community troops left the city of Goma in the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo on April 29, 2025. A cooperation agreement was signed in Tunis between the Tunisian competition authorities and the Competition Commission of the Common Market for Eastern and Southern Africa.
Mozambique and Malawi, with technical assistance from the International Organization for Migration (IOM), met in Tete, Mozambique to promote the implementation of a border pass system. According to the IOM press release, the aim of this measure is to simplify small-scale cross-border trade and promote secure, ordinary and efficient mobility on the main trade routes linking the two nations. The meeting brought together migration directors to establish the criteria for the border pass and agree on the coordination mechanisms required for its implementation. On April 29, 2025, the military forces of the Southern African Development Community (SADC) began their withdrawal from the town of Goma in the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo. The withdrawal follows a clear ultimatum issued by the M23 AFC, which called for them to evacuate the territories under their control without delay. According to a local media report, the SADC forces have been given permission to leave the town with their equipment via the Goma-Ginsei-Rusumo route, border towns with Rwanda and Tanzania, where arrangements have been made for them to cross into Tanzania. On April 30, 2025 in Tunis, a memorandum of understanding was signed between the Tunisian competition authorities and the Common Market for Eastern and Southern Africa (COMESA). According to a statement from the Ministry of Trade and Export Development, the agreement aims to intensify collaboration and harmonization in the fight against anti-competitive practices. Speaking at the event, Trade Minister Samir Abid said that Tunisia was keen to consolidate African integration, stressing that recommendations resulting from the meeting could be useful in developing Tunisia's legislative and institutional competition system.
On the occasion of President William Ruto's latest state visit to Beijing, Kenya and China decided to take their partnerships to a new level. This renewal of Sino-Kenyan cooperation, marked by the signing of more than 20 agreements worth several billions dollars, comes against a backdrop of economic tensions, with the United States, which decided in April 2025 to standardize custom duties with 180 countries, including Kenya, at a minimum of 10%. More details in this report.
Kenya and China are aiming to reach new heights in their cooperation following the state visit by President William Ruto from April 22 to 26, 2025. The visit was marked by the signing of more than 20 agreements between the two parties, covering various sectors such as manufacturing for $320 million, agriculture for $403 million, and tourism for $230 million.
Our ties have only deepened since, culminating in the establishment of a comprehensive strategic cooperative partnership in 2017. China is now Sub-Saharan Africa's largest trading partner and Kenya's largest overall. We export tea, coffee, flowers, and more.
The agreements signed between Kenya and China are part of the new level of partnership between the two countries. Kenya and China have maintained diplomatic relations since December 40, 1963. In 2023, trade between the two countries stood at $6.8 billion, according to data from the Kenyan National Treasury. The Treasury also points out that the Asian giant is Kenya's main bilateral creditor.
It speaks volumes of the strength and depth of the relationship between Kenya and China. My visit here underscores that solid foundation built over many years to cement the relationship between our country and China. As you are aware, China has been instrumental in matters, infrastructure, and general development in our country.
According to China's General Administration of Customs, in the first quarter of 2025, trade between Kenya and China grew by 11.9% to 16.13 billion yuan, approximately $2.24 billion. According to official sources, China is Kenya's largest trading partner and the main source of its imports, while Kenya is China's largest trading partner in East Africa.
This visit, as the first African state visit to China this year, mirrors my 2024 visit to the United States, the first African state visit there in 15 years. Perhaps, symbolically, Kenya can serve as a bridge between East and West, North and South, in an era of deepening geopolitical tensions. Let this be our shared legacy that China and Africa, through trust, vision, and partnership, helped build the foundation for a 21st century multilateralism that serves all humanity.
The boost to cooperation with China comes against a backdrop of global trade tensions, with U.S. President Donald Trump having decided to level tariffs with 180 countries from April 2025. Kenya, which wants to continue benefiting from duty-free exports of a number of products, sees this as a threat to more than 60,000 jobs. These new custom duties could also affect trade between the two countries. Total trade in gold between the United States and Kenya is estimated at $1.5 billion in 2025, with the East African country importing $782.5 billion worth of products over the period and exporting $737.3 billion to the North American country. The 11th Forum of the African Union Commission on International Law (QUADI) will be held in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia from May 22nd to 23rd, 2025. Under the theme International Law, WTO Reform and Implementation of the FTEA, the 11th QUADI Forum aims to contribute to the legal definition and articulation of African expectations and proposals in the context of the major debate on WTO reform, bearing in mind the advent of the FTEA and its beginnings of effective operation. The forum is intended to provide an opportunity for brainstorming and strategy making among the various stakeholders, including academics and researchers, and international trade law, national trade policy negotiators, FTA stakeholders, trade policy officials from the African regional economic communities, and EU legal and trade officials. The city of Victoria Falls in Zimbabwe will be hosting the SADC Statistics Committee meeting from May 27 to 29, 2025. Organized by the Secretariat of the Southern African Development Community (SADC), the aim of this meeting is to improve the quality, availability, and use of statistics in the SADC region in order to support evidence-based decision-making, policy development, and regional integration. The 4th African Media Convention will be held in Marrakesh, Morocco from May 29 to 31st, 2025. It will bring together the continent's most influential media voices to tackle one of the most pressing issues of our time, artificial intelligence and its impact on African journalism. Organized as part of the commemoration of World Press Freedom Day, this edition will provide an essential platform for journalists, policymakers, technology innovators, and civil society leaders to explore how AI is transforming press freedom, access to information, and media sustainability in Africa. Under the theme AI, Press Freedom and Access to Information Shaping the Future of African Media, the 4th African Media Convention promises stimulating discussions, concrete strategies, and innovative collaborations.
Hailemariam Desalegn is an Ethiopian politician who held the position of Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Minister of Social Affairs, and Prime Minister of Ethiopia between 2012 and 2018, as well as being a facilitator for peace in the Democratic Republic of Congo. He has been chairman of the board of TradeMark Africa since September 2024. A portrait by Nana Kamsukom.
Since September 2024, Ethiopian Hailemariam Desalegn has served as chairman of the board of TradeMark Africa, an aid-for-trade organization established in 2010 with a mission to develop intra-African trade and increase Africa's share of global trade, while helping to make trade more pro-poor and environmentally sustainable. Drawing on his experience, Hailemariam Desalegn will guide TradeMark Africa through its 2023-2030 strategy, which focuses on further reducing the time and cost of transporting goods across borders and improving market access for small and medium-sized enterprises.
TradeMark Africa, I joined simply because trade is the most important tool to integrate our continent. Our leaders in the history of the African unity and as well as African Union, a landmark decision has taken. That is the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. And 49 countries has ratified this agreement, which shows it is a very important agreement.
In 2013, at the age of 43, Hailemariam was elected chairman in office of the African Union. His experience of trade agreements and promoting economic integration during his term of office, 2013-2014, also attracted the interest of TradeMark Africa, which is stepping up its effort to support African governments in defining and negotiating their trade policy.
5 years ago, Africa made history. When the African Continental Free Trade Area was launched, it carried the hopes of 1.2 billion people coming together as one market, harnessing a 3 trillion economy and a vision of an African trading with itself on its own terms.
Hailemariam holds 2 master's degrees, including one in organizational leadership, and has held the positions of Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Minister of Social Affairs, and Prime Minister of Ethiopia, a position he resigned after 6 years in power. His tenure was marked by a visionary approach to trade and diplomatic engagements, which enabled Ethiopia to achieve sustained double-digit economic growth.
Trade under AfCFTA has begun, and business across the continent are starting to explore new opportunities, but challenges abound. And the early signs of trade growth are encouraging. Between 2017 and 2023, intra-African trade grew by 27%, from 140 billion to 190 billion.
At 59, Hailemariam Desalegn is recognized as a fervent African political player. On 8 February 2025, drawing on his experience as an intermediary in crisis resolution, he was appointed facilitator for peace in the Democratic Republic of Congo during the Southern African Development Community. He currently sits on the boards of several international organizations.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being with us on this edition of the African Union Journal. Stay tuned to Africa 24 English for the best African news in streaming and replay on our website, africa24tv.com, and on all our social networks.
On Africa 24 English, the African Union Journal is presented to you by Afreximbank.